all about skills, especially like in the hip hop game. It's about skills. You always have to have skills. You couldn't come to a Paul Jam or say a rhyme or get on the turntables if you ain't have skills. So you have to be able to showcase it as an MC. You should be, by the time one thing about the internet, I want to say, it gives everybody an outlet to get their music out and be heard, but sometimes some people or some MCs that haven't really sharpened their sword like that. And that's what I think people really need to do, to take the time out to really get their craft correct, because this is serious. You're dealing with
if I could add on to that, keep in mind, right, that music has many different ways of expressing itself. Fun, upbeat, downbeat, emotional, reflective, contemplative, all these different things. But an artist should always strive to have something in his music that's profound. Even if you take a song from the 60s or 70s called Pina Colada, right? This song still plays in another generation because people are going to pass through a situation like that. You know what I mean? So you take a song like Cream by Wu-Tang Clan, and Raekwon is talking about growing up on the crime side, the New York Times side, and going through the struggle of being a young teenager and his mother and father separating and him not having money to buy the kind of clothes he wants. Or Inspector Deck talking about how he feels stressed out, so he turns to smoking weed to try to forget about his problems.
Yeah.
A good artist and songwriter, Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, the world and the problems, these things remain timeless because the artists have took the time to channel something in his spirit and in his person to record it and to put it into writing. You know what I mean? Or even if you take a song like one of my favorite songs, I think last year or 2 years ago, was Drunk in Love, where you hear Beyonce just talking to her and her man coming home drunk and just getting it in.
Yeah.
That happens. So when music gives you a dose of reality that you can relate to, it lives longer. If it's a song that just came out and had you just shake your butt for a month or two and disappears into the obscurity of the other million songs, that particular artist is not going to have the longevity or the cultural importance that he may desire because he did not put the work and craft in to master it.
Rizza, how do you put your rhymes together? So, for instance, in like Samurai Showdown or Triumph, could you flow like? Sometimes I feel like you're on beat, you maybe off beat, but you're still in the line. So how do you put pen to paper? What's the energy when you put pen to paper? And like, do you get an extra competitive energy amongst other Wu-Tang members? Like, who would be someone in Wu-Tang that gives you that oomph when you're in the studio to really go hard with the pen as well?
I think for me, what I've added to hip hop is unorthodox.
Yeah, that's it.
I think that my cadence is always switching from being on beat, off beat. It's not when I'm off beat, it's actually because I'm not going to the snare any longer. Yeah. Some people rap to the snare. You know what I mean?
True.
I'll go to the hi-hat. I'll go to the kick drum, or I'll just become like a soloist musician, jazz guy who just, a trumpet line comes in. So you hear, on Triumph, when I start off March of the Wooden Soldiers, see Cypher Punks couldn't hold us. 1,000 men rusting in, not one nigga was sober, perpendicular to the square. I stand go like flare, escape from the dragon lair. In particular, my beat, it's like I'm flowing it, and I'm playing with it, and I don't care if it goes off for a minute because I know what? I'm going to bring it back on. And so, my specialty, I think, also is vocabulary.
Of course. Yeah.
What I strive to do, and I think this is for any MC, if you take one of my lyrics and you write it out, you'll realize that one sentence has enough information for a paragraph. And that's something I like to specialize in. So if I could give you an example of it, if I say fusion of the 5 elements, the search for the higher intelligence, you write that down, you can now decipher what is the fusion of the 5 elements. And when you start looking into what that is, you realize I'm dealing with inner alchemy, taking your 5 emotions, your 5 organs, and the 5 constellations and putting all that energy together just to have a better energy within yourself. And that's just a half a sentence.
So true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy. So, the energy in the studio.
I prefer in the studio.
Yeah.
Right? I'll just say that. I think, Matt, what do you prefer? You prefer the artist sending you verses over the internet, or you prefer them to be in the studio?
Oh, nah, in the studio. It's like, studio is always better. Like,
and the cool thing about it that people forget, I just want to point this out, because this is important, I think, for music and for hip-hop, is that when everybody's in the studio, you're not just recording a vocal or a beat, you're recording a moment in time. And that's why some of those early classic albums, whether it's The Chronic, whether it's Doggy Style, whether it's A Tribe Called Quest, whether it's Wu-Tang, you know, you're hearing all these voices or things. You're getting the energy of people still inside the studio and recording it. You're just not seeing it, but the energy is being recorded onto those 2-inch analog tapes we used to use. I think that's more important. You know what I mean? I think that's something that music should always try to hold on to.
Okay, so